Why do you always write in a haunted genre?
Oh, I think that's a good use of the word genre, and it's a good question. I don't always write in a haunted genre, actually. This one is my first ghost story. The Considine Curse had a kind of gothic feel. It had that sort of similar thing, and Thornthwaite Everton's also has that kind of darkness to it, as it's about a pair of twins kind of kill each other. But my dragon detective books are written in a detective genre. The Ninja Meerkats are written in a... Is Kung Fu a genre? Kung Fu genre. So yeah, I play with various different things.
How many hours do you write a day?
Oh, that's a good question. How many hours do I write a day? It very much depends. Today, I so far have written about an hour and a half on the train, and I will write again on the an hour and a half on the train back to home. And providing I get everything done, I'll call that a day. But normally I'll try and do a full day's writing, but it will vary, and I've usually got a few different projects. But sometimes I've got a full-time job, in which case I only get to write on my journey to and from work. So it depends on how long that journey is.
How long have you been an author for?
How long have I been an author for? I've been an author for 5 years. I've been a published author. I've been writing for a lot longer than that, but it was 2007, The Dragon Detective Agency, The Case of the Missing Cat, was my first book, came out in January 2007, so 5 years now. What year did I write this book? This year. This year, I started writing it last December, and I finished writing it maybe in about May, I think, something like that. It was quite, I had to rush to get the deadline for this one because I just moved publishers and things. So yeah, so it took about 6 months. Who or what inspired me to write books? That's a good question. I think the thing that inspired me to write books was love of story and love of fiction. And I say specifically story rather than love of books. Now, I've always loved books, and I love reading books, and I love getting excited by books. But I've also always loved TV and film, and listening to stories and theatre. It's all the same thing. And what you need to remember is it's great if you love books, like I did, and I was quite a slow reader as well, so it took me a while to get through books. If you're sort of person who says, you know what, I prefer watching TV, I'd rather watch TV than read a book, I'd rather watch a film. Everything you watch has been written. Everything you watch and enjoy, which is fiction, has started with a pen and a paper or a computer screen and somebody with an idea. And that's how fiction works. All fiction always begins with writing. So if you enjoy a good computer game or a good film or a good TV series or a good episode of Doctor Who, whatever it is, if you're enjoying good writing, there might be lots of other things that have gone into the mix as well, but at the beginning, none of it would happen without a good script. And so to me, it's absolute love of story and love of fiction and love of that escapism, disappearing to different worlds. Yes? Do I want to be a famous writer? I'd like to be successful enough to do writing full time, and I'm getting there. This year I'm a TV producer as well, so I do a bit of TV work which pays slightly better than writing. But I'm sort of trying to balance the two things, and this year I did about three months work of that. It would be nice to be full time. Not really for the fame, but more for the just being able to live comfortably with while publishing books. Yes?
When did you start writing?
When did I start writing? That's a very good question. I started writing stories when I was kind of your sort of age, I think. Yeah, I was certainly in primary school when I was writing stories. They were either very short stories, or they were the very beginnings of very long stories that I never got beyond chapter 4 to, and I would get lost and forget it. It takes a while to finish a first full-length book. It wasn't until after university that I was 21, I think, when I finished or 22 maybe, when I finished my first full-length book, and it was a bit like having climbed up and over a mountain. It felt like a great feeling, until it didn't get published, and then I had to write another one, and that didn't get published. And so it took a while, it takes a long time from starting to write to finishing a book to finishing a book which is good enough to get published. So yeah, it's a long journey. Yes? Sorry? How many instruments do I play? I'll play anything you can do that with, really. So I can play the guitar and the banjo and that's the ukulele, which we'll be finishing with in a minute. Oh, that's a good question. Did I always want to be an author? I always wanted to write, yeah, I always wanted to write things, and I always have written things. At what point I wanted to be an author, I don't know. There was lots of other things I used to try and write. I used to write lots of comedy sketches, I used to write lots of sitcoms, films, plays. None of these got made, none of them, yeah, but I used to write a lot of them. So I've always written lots of things, yeah, and then at what point I decided to do books, I don't know when that happened. But there were other things like what I wanted to be as well. I kind of wanted to be a musician a bit, because you know, I still do that, which is nice, I get to do that now. I wanted to be a graphic designer at one point, but then I worked out what it was and I didn't anymore. I just thought it sounded like a cool name. My favourite book, I think I'm going to say, is Constable and Toop, and I'm saying that not just because it's my new book, not just because that's why I'm here, but because this is the longest, about twice as long as my previous books. It's the most complicated, and I think it's the most interesting of my books. It's also the first one I set in a different time. I set it in 1884 in Victorian London, so I did lots of research walking around London. I didn't do that much research looking up, looking down. I sort of looked up, looking up. Does that make sense? No. Okay, but yeah, so that's why it's one of my favourite books, and I love, there's lots of great characters that I really enjoyed spending time with, and that's what it's like when you're writing a book. Just like when you're reading a book, you are spending time with the characters.